I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, spilling my guts about how I got completely blindsided by the woman I trusted with everything. It's funny the way life hits you when you're already down. I just lost my job, an unemployment blow that hit harder than I expected. I was already trying to hold it together, pretending that it wasn't tearing me apart inside. And then, right when I thought I'd hit rock bottom, I found out she'd been cheating on me with my best friend. It started with small things, little gaps in texts, vague excuses for why she was busy, a few too many late nights. I brushed it off, telling myself she was stressed or maybe just overwhelmed. I even convinced myself that I was overreacting, that I was just paranoid from everything else going wrong. But then I saw the messages. It was on her phone, lying face down on the kitchen table when I came home from yet another job interview. The screen lit up with their conversation. I remember the faint glow illuminating the room in that quiet, sickening way, like a spotlight on betrayal. My stomach dropped. A cold sweat broke out on my back. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Can't wait to see you tonight, and don't forget we're meeting at that hotel. My hands trembled as I scrolled down. They had been talking for weeks, making plans as if I wasn't even there. My best friend, who I'd trusted since college, was their secret. My wife's words were casual but intimate, like they had their own secret language. I saw her laughing at some joke, her voice in my head echoing from the texts. The worst part. She knew I'd just lost my job. She knew I was vulnerable, and she still chose to do this. My fingers clenched into fists. I could feel my jaw tighten so hard I thought it might snap. My breathing was shallow, each inhale sharp and quick. I wanted to scream, to smash something, but instead I sat there, staring at the glowing phone, feeling my world tilt sideways. I looked over at her, still oblivious, as she cooked dinner like everything was normal. That's when I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let this slide. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stayed awake, running through every possible move I could make. I wanted my revenge to be perfect, calculated, precise, maybe a little satisfying. I knew I couldn't confront her right away, not until I had a plan in place. She thought she was safe, that I'd never find out, but I was already thinking 10 steps ahead. I needed to gather everything, every piece of evidence, so I could finally confront her face to face. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding head but a clear mind. I decided to play it cool for now, gather more proof, and wait for her to slip up again. But I also started planning what I'd say when I finally faced her. I didn't want to scream or cry. I wanted her to see me cold, calculating. I was ready to make her regret every second she thought she could betray me and get away with it. I knew I'd need to find her phone again, somewhere she'd never expect. I took her keys, her passwords, everything I could get my hands on. I set a trap, something that would give me the upper hand. I'd catch her in the act again, or find something new that would make her realize her luck ran out. I spent hours mapping out each step, each way I could catch her, expose her, whatever it took. And through it all, I kept thinking about one thing: how betrayed I felt, not just by her but by the person I'd trusted most. That's what kept me going. I didn't want her to think she could get away with it, didn't want her to think she'd hurt me without consequences. She needed to see that there was a price to pay. So I waited, quietly, patiently, while I played the fool. I kept pretending I didn't know while planning my next move. The game was on and I was ready to win. I just hoped I could hold my nerve long enough to see it through. Would she slip up again? Could I really pull off what I was thinking? I didn't know yet, but I was about to find out. That night, I kept the act going. I sat across from her at the kitchen table, pretending everything was normal, while my mind was racing with plans. I could feel the adrenaline pounding in my temples, every sense heightened. Her smile, her laugh, those were just masks, and I could almost see through them now. She looked so casual, so unaware that I knew her secret. I watched her as she stirred the pot, her fingers slim and delicate, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, like she was waiting for me to say something, to accuse her. I knew I needed to stay in control. I leaned back in my chair, took a slow sip of water, and kept my voice steady. "So, how was your day?" I asked, even though I already knew. She blinked, surprised at the question. "Fine," she said, smiling too brightly. "Just the usual stuff." I nodded, pretending to believe her. Inside, I was calculating every move. I'd already found a way to access her phone, hidden apps, secret messages. I'd planted a small recording device in her purse just in case she slipped up again. I didn't trust her not to say something incriminating when she thought I wasn't listening. "What's for dinner?" I asked casually, trying to get her to relax. She answered with some vague comment about a new recipe she wanted to try. I watched her closely, noticing the way her fingers fidgeted, the small flush on her cheeks. She was nervous, I was sure of it. She knew I'd found out somehow, but she was still trying to pretend she didn't. That's what made me angriest, her arrogance, like she thought she could just go on with her life and I'd never catch her. I decided it was time for the next step. I excused myself to the bathroom, where I had already set up my phone to record. I pressed play on the voice memo app I'd hidden there, just to see if she'd say anything incriminating when she thought I was out of earshot. Less than 5 minutes later, I was back in the kitchen, pretending to be busy with my own thoughts. She had no idea I was listening. I heard her whispering on the phone, "Yeah, he's completely clueless. He's so broken right now, he won't even see it coming." My stomach clenched, but I stayed calm. I kept my face neutral, even as my fists clenched under the table. I was going to use this. I was going to have the evidence I needed. Later that night, I went through her phone again, pulling up the messages. I scrolled through the conversations, saved screenshots, and made sure I had everything. I wanted her to understand that I was in control now, that she'd messed with someone who was willing to go all the way. The plan was falling into place. I'd confront her soon, but not just yet. I wanted her to think she still had some power, some control. I needed her to come to me, to believe I was still trusting her. That's when I'd finally show her what I'd uncovered. I looked at her sleeping in the bed, her chest rising and falling softly, and I felt a strange mixture of rage and empty numbness. I hadn't cried yet, not really. I just felt this cold fire burning through me. The feeling that I'd been hit so low I'd never seen it coming. What she didn't realize was that I'd already decided her fate. I wasn't going to let her walk away, not after what she'd done. I'd play her game, yeah, but I'd come out on top. The moment to strike was coming, and she was about to learn that betrayal had consequences. Mine would be unforgiving. I took a deep breath and slowly reached for the small USB drive I'd hidden in my pocket. The next step was mine to take. I wasn't about to let her think she'd gotten away with it. Not anymore. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I was already 10 steps ahead of her. The evidence was securely stored on my laptop, everything carefully backed up. I had the recordings, the screenshots, and even her own words. I knew I had what I needed to make her realize she'd pushed her luck too far. The game was about to change. I kept my face neutral as I made breakfast, watching her from the corner of my eye. She was still pretending nothing was wrong, pouring coffee, humming softly. She had no idea I'd already started planning how to reveal everything. I wanted her panic, her guilt, her sudden regret to hit her like a freight train. She finally broke the silence, leaning over the counter. "So, what's the plan today?" I looked up, feigning casual interest. "Nothing special. Just some errands, maybe a walk later. You?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "Same here, just trying to keep busy." I knew I could wait much longer. I had to strike when she least expected it. I finished my coffee, then calmly reached for my phone. I had already set everything up, timed messages, a plan to confront her when she was most vulnerable. "Hey," I said, voice low and steady, "there's something I need to talk to you about." Her smile faded, a little curiosity flickering across her face. "What's up?" "I found some things yesterday," I said, staring directly into her eyes. "Things I didn't want to believe, but I've seen enough now. Your texts, the conversations, you and my best friend, how long has this been going on?" Her eyes widened and she started to stammer. I didn't mean for it to get this far," she whispered, voice trembling. "It was a mistake, just one moment of weakness." I shook my head slowly, feeling the fire burn in my chest. "A mistake? You think that makes it okay?" While I was down, struggling to hold myself together after losing everything, you decided to cheat with my closest friend. She looked like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. Instead, she looked at her hands, and I saw the guilt gnawing at her. That's when I revealed what I'd planned all along. I pulled out the USB drive from my pocket, clicking it open. I recorded everything, I told her. Every text, every secret conversation. I've got the proof on my laptop, too. And I'm not here to argue, just to tell you that this is over. I have no reason to stay, not after this." Her face paled as she realized I had her dead to rights. I could see her trying to grasp for words, but I wasn't going to give her another chance. This was the moment of no return. "You're leaving," I said calmly, "and I'm taking everything back. The house, the money, everything. You don't get to hurt me and then pretend it didn't happen." She looked like she was about to cry, but I wasn't moved. My stomach was clenched tight, my fists still slightly trembling. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal. This wasn't just a breakup, it was her paying for what she'd done. I handed her the USB drive. "Here's the proof. You're free to do whatever you want with it. Just know I'll be watching and I won't forget." Her hands shook as she reached for it, whispering, "I never meant for things to get this bad." I turned sharply and headed for the door, my mind already racing ahead to the next step. I knew I couldn't just walk away and pretend this never happened. I needed to make her understand that the betrayal had consequences and that I was done being a fool. As I grabbed my coat, I paused. "Take whatever you want from the house. I'm done." The door shut softly behind me, leaving her standing there, clutching the USB. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Her silence was enough. Now I had everything I needed. The revenge plan was in motion, and she was about to see that crossing me during my lowest moment was the biggest mistake she'd ever made. The taste of victory would come soon enough. And then maybe I'd finally start picking up the pieces of my life. After I left, I could feel the adrenaline still coursing through my veins. My hands were slightly numb, like I'd been holding onto a secret I wasn't ready to let go of. The house was silent behind me, just the soft hum of the fridge and the distant city sounds. I knew she'd be panicking, probably trying to figure out what I'd done with the proof. Good, that's exactly what I wanted. I made my way to the cafe around the corner, a quiet place where I could think without being watched. As I sat down and stared into my coffee, I replayed everything in my mind. It was over. The betrayal, the lies, the trust I'd foolishly given her. I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. Part of me was glad to have finally taken control, but another part was hollow, realizing how much I'd lost. While I waited, I typed out a message for her. It was cold, calculated, no "I love you," no "be careful," just a simple, firm statement. "You crossed the line, you lost me. Don't bother contacting me again." I pressed send and watched her reaction from afar. I knew she'd see it soon enough. Within an hour, she texted back, her words desperate and trembling. "Please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. Can we talk?" I didn't reply. I knew deep down that she was trying to manipulate her way back into my life, but I wasn't having it. This was her consequence. She'd pushed me to the brink, and now she was trying to pull me back with tears and apologies. No way. Later that evening, I went online and set up a secure email account. I sent the evidence to myself, encrypted and hidden behind multiple layers of security. I wanted to make sure I'd have access to it no matter what. Then I did something I'd been planning for a while, an anonymous tip to her boss, letting them know she'd been unfaithful and sending the proof. I knew she'd be fired soon enough, and honestly, I didn't care what happened to her job. The next morning, her phone buzzed with the news. I saw her face drain when she read the message. She looked stunned, then frantic. I caught her in the act. She was frantically trying to delete her secret messages, her face red with anger and shame. That's when I knew I'd done enough damage to make her understand she couldn't escape the consequences. I stayed quiet, watching her scramble with her phone, then called her. I kept my tone flat. "You're done," I said. "You lost everything, my trust, our marriage, even your job. Enjoy your new reality. Maybe now you'll think twice before betraying someone who loved you." She tried to argue, tried to explain herself, but I cut her off. "Don't bother, I already know what I need to know. This is over." That day, I packed a bag, grabbed the last of my belongings, and left the house for good. I handed her the keys, not out of anger but out of finality. She looked at me with tear-streaked cheeks and something close to regret. I didn't care. Walking away, I felt a strange sense of liberation. I'd been betrayed during my worst moment, and somehow, now I was free. The pain was still there, sure, but I knew I'd survive it. I'd take this lesson and come out stronger. Looking back, I realized that revenge isn't about hurting someone just because they hurt you. It's about reclaiming your dignity, showing them that their actions have real consequences. No matter how low you feel, there's always a way to turn the tables if you're willing to stay cold, focused, patient. If you're ever in a situation where your trust gets shattered, remember, you don't have to accept betrayal as the end. Sometimes the most brutal revenge is simply walking away with your head held high. And that's exactly what I did. In the days that followed, I felt a strange mixture of relief and a dull ache I couldn't shake. I'd done what I needed to do, cut her out of my life cleanly, and that was supposed to be the end of it. But the sharpness of betrayal stays with you, like a scratch you can't quite reach to clean out. I kept replaying that moment in my mind, wondering if I'd gone too far or not far enough. The silence was deafening at first. I'd lost my partner, my friend, and my sense of stability all in one blow. But in the quiet, I also started to rebuild, slowly, painfully, but steadily. I spent hours working on myself, going to the gym, reconnecting with old friends I'd neglected. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring at the window, feeling that familiar hollow ache, but I'd shake it off. One night I sat alone in my apartment, reflecting on everything. I poured a glass of whiskey, the cold burn settling in my chest. I thought about who I'd been and who I was becoming. I realized something. I'd been too trusting, too naive. That betrayal had shattered my ideal of what a relationship should be, and it forced me to confront some hard truths. I knew I'd need to be cautious moving forward, but I also knew I couldn't let her get the last word, so I made a decision. I would confront her one last time, not to argue or beg, but to make her see she'd lost someone who really loved her. I reached out, just a simple message. I want to meet. No games, no lies, just us face to face. Her reply was hesitant but agreed. I kept my expectations low, knowing that whatever she'd say, I'd already won the war in my mind. The day I met her, I felt that familiar knot tighten in my stomach. She looked different, worse, honestly, like she'd been hit by a truck. Her eyes were swollen, cheeks red. She tried to act casual, but her hands trembled as she fidgeted with her purse. "I guess you wanted to see me," she said softly. I looked at her, shoulders squared. "Yeah, I just wanted to tell you, you lost me. You lost everything because of what you did, and honestly, I don't think you even realize how much you screwed up." She looked down, tears threatening to spill over. I was stupid. I thought I was doing what I wanted, but I see now I was just hurting myself more. "Exactly," I said, voice cold but controlled. "You thought you could cheat and lie and get away with it. But I'm not the fool I was before. I've already moved on, and you," I paused, voice steady, "you're just a chapter I'm glad to close." She looked up, eyes pleading. "Please, I'm sorry, I didn't think it would come to this." I shook my head. "Sorry doesn't cut it anymore. You betrayed me during my worst moment. That's unforgivable. I hope you figure out what you want from life, but it won't be with me." I reached into my pocket, pulled out a small envelope I'd prepared earlier, and handed it to her. "Here, everything I found, all the proof, all the messages. I want you to remember, actions have consequences." She stared at it, trembling. "You really went that far?" "Far enough," I said. "Goodbye." I turned and walked away, leaving her sitting there, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. I didn't look back. I knew I'd done what I needed to do. Walking away from her, knowing I'd finally taken control, felt like finally breathing after suffocating. It was hard, but it was necessary. That betrayal taught me something I won't forget. Trust isn't given blindly, and some people are better off without it. Now I'm rebuilding my life from scratch, slowly but surely. And I'm telling anyone who's been betrayed, don't let someone's betrayal define you. Take your power back, even if it's messy and painful. Because in the end, the real revenge is living well without them. A few weeks later, I finally felt that elusive sense of closure settle in. I'd gone through the worst, come out the other side, and started to piece myself back together. I handed over the keys, packed my bags, and walked out of that house knowing I'd left her with nothing but the truth and the weight of her own mistakes. The moment I dropped the keys on the counter was the last time I saw her, and honestly, I felt lighter, like I'd shed a part of myself I didn't need. I remember the exact sensation. My palm felt cool as I let go, the door closing softly behind me. I didn't look back, I didn't need to. I knew I'd done everything I could to end that chapter, to remind myself that I deserved better. It was a decisive, final act. I told her she was done, and I'd meant it. No more waiting, no more pain, no more lies. Just a clean break and a new beginning. Walking away, I felt a strange mixture of relief and clarity. The betrayal was a brutal lesson, but it also became my catalyst. I've learned that trusting blindly makes you vulnerable, but trusting your instincts and setting boundaries makes you stronger. I took that pain, and I turned it into fuel for my comeback. Looking back now, I realized that revenge wasn't about hurting her. It was about reclaiming my dignity, showing her that her betrayal couldn't ruin me, that I was capable of walking away, even when everything inside me wanted to stay and fight. I suppose that's the real strength, knowing when to walk and knowing that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well without them. So to anyone out there going through something similar, trust is fragile, but your self-worth is. You don't need to prove anything by throwing punches or dragging things out. The true power lies in walking away, head high, knowing you've taken control of your life again. Because no matter how betrayed you feel, you always have the option to start over. And that's the best revenge of all.